Hello, amazing English learners. Welcome back to Unlock B2 English, the podcast dedicated to helping you master every nuance of the English language. Today, we're tackling a crucial social skill, how to disagree politely.
That's right, Sarah. It's something many learners find challenging, as direct disagreement can sometimes sound impolite in English. Our goal today is to equip you with phrases and strategies to express a different opinion constructively, both in professional and social settings.
Exactly. So for this episode, we're going to explore various phrases and approaches to disagree respectfully without causing offense or sounding aggressive. We'll cover different levels of formality and nuance.
Key vocabulary for today includes tactful, being sensitive and considerate in dealing with others, especially in delicate situations. For example, it's important to be tactful when giving negative feedback. Counter-argument, an argument or set of reasons put forward to oppose an idea or theory developed in another argument. She presented a strong counter-argument to her proposal. Concede, to admit that something is true or valid after first denying or resisting it. He had to concede that her point was valid. Nuance, a subtle difference in meaning, expression, or sound. Understanding the nuances of polite disagreement is key to effective communication.
Diplomatic, dealing with people in a sensitive and effective way. He handled the difficult negotiation with a diplomatic approach. So get ready to master the art of polite disagreement. Before we continue, think about this. When was the last time you wanted to disagree with someone in English but held back because you weren't sure how to say it politely? Keep that question in mind as we talk.
Sarah, a common fear among B2 learners is that disagreeing will make them seem rude or confrontational. How can we overcome that initial apprehension?
That's a very valid concern, Mark. The key is often in the phrasing and the tone. Instead of direct contradiction, we often use softening phrases or indirect approaches. For example, instead of "you're wrong," which is very blunt, you could say, "I see your point, however, I'm not entirely convinced that..." This acknowledges their perspective before introducing yours.
I see. So it's about showing respect for their opinion, even if you don't share it. Could you give us a few more examples of these softening phrases?
Absolutely. You could start with phrases like, "I understand what you're saying, but I have a slightly different take on it." Or, "I can see why you'd think that, but from my perspective." Or, "That's an interesting point. However, I would argue that..." Or, "While I agree with you on X, I'm not sure about Y." These phrases act as a bridge, making your disagreement less abrupt. They signal that you've listened and processed their argument.
That's really helpful. And what about when you want to offer a counter-argument without sounding like you're attacking their idea?
Good question. Instead of presenting their counter-argument as a definitive truth, frame it as a suggestion or an alternative perspective. For instance, "Have you considered?" Or, "Perhaps another way to look at this is..." You can also use phrases that invite discussion, like, "What if we considered?" Or, "I wonder if it might be more effective to..."
So it's about making it a collaborative exploration of ideas rather than a debate where one person wins and the other loses.
Precisely. And remember to use appropriate body language and tone of voice. Maintain eye contact, keep an open posture, and speak calmly. Your nonverbal cues can greatly influence how your disagreement is perceived. Even when you're just listening to a podcast, try to imagine yourself using these phrases in a real conversation.
What if the other person is quite assertive and you need to hold your ground firmly, but still politely?
In those situations, you might need to be more direct, but still polite. You could say, "With all due respect, I'm afraid I don't entirely agree. I appreciate your point, but I must respectfully disagree on this." I see things a little differently. My reasoning is the key here is the initial polite framing, with all due respect. I appreciate your point, which softens the direct disagreement that follows.
And how important is it to be able to concede a point, even if you still largely disagree?
It's incredibly important, Mark, for maintaining good relationships and showing intellectual flexibility. If someone makes a valid subpoint, even if you disagree with their overall argument, acknowledging it can build bridges. You could say, "You're right about that particular aspect," or "I concede that point, but this demonstrates that you're listening and are open to modifying your own views, even if only slightly."
That's crucial for genuine communication and avoiding an all-or-nothing mentality in discussions.
Absolutely. And finally, remember the challenge at the end, which is designed to help you apply these techniques. The more you practice, the more natural they will become.
So, no more shying away from expressing your opinion. We're here to guide you, step by step, towards confident and diplomatic communication. We want to help you unlock that B2 potential.
Okay, so let's quickly recap what we've discussed today.
We introduced you to the art of disagreeing politely in English, focusing on phrases and strategies that avoid sounding aggressive.
We talked about using softening phrases like, "I understand what you're saying, but," and framing your counterarguments as suggestions or alternative perspectives.
And don't forget the importance of nonverbal cues and the ability to concede a point to maintain a constructive dialogue.
Now, for your weekly challenge, think of a recent situation, real or imagined, where you had a different opinion from someone else. Rewrite how you would express your disagreement using at least 2 of the polite phrases or strategies we discussed today.
Write down your new response or, better yet, practice saying it out loud. The more you actively use the language, the faster you'll improve.
That's it for this episode of Unlock B2 English. We're thrilled to help you master this essential communication skill.
Remember to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform so you don't miss any new episodes.
Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back in a few days with our next episode, The Ultimate Pronunciation Guide, Mastering the TH and R sounds.
Don't miss it. See you then.